Okay, Rich Van Tassel here, giving you our preview for tomorrow's Super Bowl. I could not do it on the radio yesterday. We apologize. The snow kept us out, so we're doing this today. Hopefully, everyone can still watch and catch the picks for this game tomorrow between the Panthers and the Denver Broncos. The injuries for the Carolina Panthers, three of them listed, all as probable. Mike Tolbert, the fullback, Thomas Davis, the linebacker, and Jared Allen, the defensive end. And I just saw that Jared Allen is expected to start, and Thomas Davis will be wearing a protective cast on his arm. So, and especially with the Super Bowl, I mean, we've discussed all season long where I stand on probable. I expect you to play, and in the Super Bowl, I would expect the guys with a fractured neck are going to find a way to get out there. For the Broncos, they have two listed. They are both probable as well. Darian Stewart and T.J. Ward, both the safeties. So, we'll start right there, actually, because that's one of the matchups I was going to look at in this game with the Denver Broncos was their safeties. Um, I'd say the safeties are probably the weakest part of their secondary. They do have a solid secondary outside of that with Aqib Talib, who's one of the better and more underrated corners in the league. You also have Chris Harris Jr. and Brandon Roby. Looking at this, I'll be interested to see if Aqib Talib is going to match up on Greg Olsen, the tight end for the Denver Broncos, or the tight end for the Carolina Panthers, that is, because I would say Greg Olsen is the top weapon for Cam Newton in the passing game, and you'd use your best player no matter what to mark him up. So let's see if Wade Phillips is going to do that, put his corner on a guy like a Greg Olsen. And Aqib Talib is 6'1", he has some size, so he can certainly match up against tight ends. And on top of that, with the safeties, who are the weakest part of what is otherwise a strong secondary unit, you can play them back. You have a guy like Ted Ginn Jr., who's the wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, a guy who's very fast, can stretch the field. Um, but if you're not putting your safeties on a Greg Olsen, you can certainly play much farther back and allow your safety some help as far as being able to adjust and not have to get too close to the line of scrimmage. Very interesting game. This one is very difficult to pick. You look both ways. That's one of the matchups we looked at where it's kind of, up in the air both ways. You have a good secondary and a good secondary for Denver and a weak receiving core for Carolina, but you do have a good tight end where the safeties are weak. So it's like that all over the place in this game. Looking at, let's take, for example, the Denver Broncos pass rush. You have Von Miller and you have DeMarcus Ware along with Shane Ray and Garrett Wolf are guys who can really get pressure on the quarterback, or Derek Wolf, that is. However, Cam Newton is a guy who can certainly break pressure when he slips away and gets downfield. Now, people look at that and say, can the pressure the Denver Broncos are able to create actually hurt them because of Cam Newton's escapability? It's never going to hurt you to get pressure on the quarterback. It's always a good thing. However, it's just minimized a bit by how well Cam Newton can get out of there. But on top of that, Denver has two good middle linebackers in Danny Trevathan and Brandon Marshall, who can certainly spy Cam Newton and be able to watch him and hunt him down if they're able to get pressure on him and at least keep him contained in the sense where they're not letting him break to the outside and get away from these guys. So it's like that all over the place in this game. The matchups, while they have some favorability in one spot, they lose favorability in another spot. Carolina on the defensive side of the ball, they have a very good secondary where the Denver Broncos have a good receiving core. You have Emmanuel Sanders, Demarius Thomas, the wide receivers for the Denver Broncos. You also have a tight end in Vernon Davis. You look, Carolina has guys like Josh Norman, Benny Benwickery, who are good cornerbacks. They have a Kurt Coleman, who I put on my all-pro team this year, who can mark up a guy like Vernon Davis. But what that's going to do is that's going to force Denver to want to try to run the ball more, which is probably the game plan they want to have to keep Peyton Manning from having to throw too much and make too many plays downfield. So again, this is what's making this game very difficult to pick. Carolina is clearly the superior team here, and I'd say if this was a best of 7 series you had to play for a championship, Carolina's going to win it in 5. with that being said, that's why I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos, because I think on this day, in this game, where they only have to win one game, they can game plan and keep Carolina from jumping on them early. They're going to find a way to win the game. And never underestimate the fact that this is almost certainly going to be Peyton Manning's last game, and that is going to be a very big factor in determining who wins and who loses. You can never discount a guy like a Peyton Manning, a great player who has a chance to finish off. He can certainly find a way to get all the strength he needs in this game for one last hurrah. And that's why I'm going to pick the Denver Broncos. Now, I'm not a gambler, and I don't necessarily condone gambling. That's not why I come on. The spread is 5.5 points. Even if Carolina wins, I wouldn't expect Carolina to cover the points. Denver of course, has to keep Carolina from jumping out early, which they did against the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. They're probably going to have to hold Carolina to under 14 points in the first half to have any shot, and I expect them to. Again, the pressure is not a bad thing. It never is. It's not going to work to Denver's disadvantage to get pressure on the quarterback, and I think they're going to be able to confuse Cam Newton enough, keep it close, and I expect a big play like a turnover or a return for a touchdown by an Aqib Talib or someone like that, or maybe a strip sack fumble deep in Carolina territory by a Von Miller or a DeMarcus Ware, and that's really what's going to stem the tide in this game. Peyton Manning's going to make the plays when they count. They're going to soften them up by running the ball, Denver that is, and then he's going to be able to find an Emmanuel Sanders or Demaryius Thomas downfield. I would look for Emmanuel Sanders to be the one who breaks loose, or whoever Josh Norman is not covering. You also have a guy like Jordan Norwood for the Denver Broncos, and Norman will never go into the slot. So expect one of those guys, like a Jordan Norwood or a backup tight end, or even Vernon Davis, who hasn't been spectacular this year, to come up big in this game. And that's why I'm taking the Denver Broncos to win it. I like it to be 27-23. I know that seems like a lot of points for the Broncos to score, but they'll find a way to do so. They scored enough last week, or in their last game against the New England Patriots. So 27-23, Denver Broncos to win Super Bowl 50. All right, folks, thank you very much for viewing this. Again, please subscribe to my channel if you could. I'd really appreciate that, trying to get my subscriptions up. And we will be back, obviously, Monday with a recap of this game and possibly any quick videos during the game or any flash news alerts between now, today is Saturday, and tomorrow. Don't expect many, don't usually do stuff on the weekend, but if there's something really important, we will do that as well. So thank you all, and enjoy the game tomorrow.